Hello, and welcome to this presentation, Understanding Two-Tone Calling. In this presentation, we'll provide a short overview of two-tone or fire tone out calling used in two-way radio communications. In the United States, both pagers, as well as two-way analog radios, are still widely used in public safety communications, that is, by fire departments, emergency medical services, etc. The frequencies used by these radios are often shared between multiple stations and/or are used over a wide geographical area. Therefore, it's desirable to implement a system which provides alerts to relevant stations or firefighters, but which also mutes these alerts for other frequency users. This system would ideally generate some type of alert tone or signal when urgent messages are received, and it would also allow alerts to be followed by a text or audio message that provides more information about the nature of the emergency call. A common method of implementing this style of selective calling is by sending a sequence of two audible tones, sometimes called fire tone out or fire paging. Many public safety receiver manufacturers support decoding these tones. Originally, this was done by a company called Plectron, and companies such as Motorola, ICOM, etc. still produce radios that support two-tone calling. Two-tone alerts are, however, now somewhat less common due to the fact that similar functionality exists in more modern digital trunked radio systems. It's also worth noting that first responder radio systems in other parts of the world typically use other types of selective calling, such as five-tone systems, ZVEI, etc. One advantage of these other systems is that they typically send their tones much more quickly than in two-tone systems. Let's look a little more closely at how the two sequential tones are sent in two-tone systems. In most cases, the first tone is usually a short tone with a duration of approximately 1 second. This is followed by a long tone with a duration of approximately 2 seconds. The actual frequencies of each tone are typically in the range of 400 to 1400 Hz. Here's an example sequence. It's important to keep in mind that there's no industry standard for defining the tone parameters, such as which two frequencies to use, whether the first or second tone is the higher frequency, the tone durations, and the duration of any silent period between the two tones, etc. Note, too, that tone information, that is, which tones the pager or radio will respond to, and how the receiver will respond to them, are generally configured via programming and are not directly enterable, editable, or viewable by the end user. The interpretation of or the actions taken when tones are received also varies between radios and manufacturers. In some cases, the first tone can be used to implement a group call, where all radios in a given group are alerted simultaneously. In other cases, the first tone activates alert receivers, and the second tone activates station sirens, indoor lights, and/or loudspeakers. There are also implementations where the tone duration conveys information. For example, a longer tone being used to indicate a structure fire. Furthermore, some systems will send a voice message following the two tones, and this message may be either played back in real time or may be stored on the radio or pager for later playback. And lastly, some systems will follow the two tones with a third, longer tone, whose purpose is simply to break squelch. Before we end this presentation, let's briefly discuss how two-tone calling, or fire tone out functionality, can be tested using a communications tester or radio test set. This set is connected to the radio under test's antenna connector and transmits a carrier with an appropriate level and frequency. The tones are then dialed or modulated onto this carrier, with user-defined frequencies and timing. The behavior of the radio or pager is then checked. For example, does the radio break squelch when the proper tone pattern is received, but does not break squelch upon receipt of other tone patterns? The device under test can also be checked to see if it displays an appropriate message and/or if it plays an appropriate tone or other type of audible alert. Alternatively, the radio test set can also be used to analyze the frequencies and timing of transmitted tones. One particular thing to note is that in real-world systems, there may be substantial variation in both the nominal frequency and nominal timing of tones, so testing for proper behavior over a range of values is relatively common. Let's end with a brief summary. Two-tone calling, also commonly called fire tone out, is a type of selective calling that uses a pair of sequential, single-frequency tones, and it's still widely used in analog public radio systems in the United States. The frequencies and timing of these tones are not standardized, but typically the sequence involves a short tone and a long tone, with frequencies in the range of about 400 to 1400 Hz. The receivers, pagers, or radios can be configured to break squelch, vibrate, display messages, etc. when they receive a configured tone pair. Tones may also be used to activate lights, alarms, loudspeakers, etc. within fire stations. Testing two-tone calling is most often performed using a radio test set, which can both verify the frequency and timing of transmitted tones, as well as generate these tone sequences to test receiver behavior, and this is commonly done over a range of frequencies and timings. This concludes our presentation, Understanding Two-Tone Calling. If you'd like to learn more about selective calling, radio test, or radio test sets from Rohde & Schwarz, please see the links in the video description. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit us at rohde-schwarz.com.